The slap didn't hurt the most. What shattered me was what came after. A silence so heavy, it said more than any words ever could. A moment where time froze, respect died, and I realized that the person I had raised with my own hands was no longer standing beside me. I remember thinking, this is the moment everything changes. And I was right. Because what happened that day didn't just take my home away from me. It revealed the truth about my own family. Welcome to my YouTube channel Epic Stories Where Silence Speaks. My name is Kex, and I am 60 years old. At this age, you don't expect life to surprise you anymore. You think you've already felt every kind of pain, every shade of joy, every betrayal, and every forgiveness. You believe that whatever storms remain will be gentle, manageable. But I was wrong. The day my son's wife slapped me in the face, something inside me didn't just break, it awakened. It was a quiet afternoon. The kind of afternoon where sunlight spills lazily across the floor and time feels like it's moving slower than usual. I was sitting in the living room of the house I had built with my own hands, brick by brick, sacrifice by sacrifice. That house was never just walls and a roof. It was my life's work. My son Aris had come home early that day. He looked tense. His jaw was tight, his eyes restless. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't ask immediately. At my age, you learn that silence sometimes reveals more than questions. A few minutes later, his wife Lena walked in. Her footsteps were sharp, heavy, not the kind you hear from someone at peace. The air shifted the moment she entered. Even before a word was spoken, I could feel the storm brewing. "Kex," she said, her voice cold, no respect, no warmth, just my name spoken like a challenge. I looked at her calmly, yes. Before I could say anything more, Aris stepped in. "We need to talk." I nodded, "Then sit, let's talk like a family." But families don't always behave like families. Sometimes they become strangers living under the same roof. The conversation started with small complaints. Lena spoke about boundaries, about interference, about how she felt uncomfortable in her own space. Her words were sharp, but I listened quietly. When you've lived 60 years, you learn that reacting quickly often makes things worse. But then she said something that pierced deeper than anything else. "This house doesn't feel like mine," she said, "and it never will as long as he is here." She pointed at me. For a moment, I thought I had misheard her. "This house," I repeated softly, "is the only thing I have left after your mother passed away. It is your husband's home, and by extension yours too." She laughed, a cold, dismissive laugh. "No," she said, "it's yours, and that's the problem." I turned to my son. He couldn't meet my eyes. That hurt more than her words. "Aris," I said gently, "what do you think?" He hesitated. That hesitation, it said everything. "I think maybe we need space," he muttered. Space. Such a small word, but it can create the biggest distances. I took a deep breath. "If you want space," I said, "we can find a way, but don't speak to me like I'm a burden in my own home." That's when everything changed. Lena stepped forward, her face filled with anger. "You are the burden," she snapped. And before I could even process her words, slap, her hand struck my face. The sound echoed louder than it should have. Not because of the force, but because of what it meant. For a moment, the world went silent. I didn't feel the pain immediately. What I felt was disbelief. At 60 years old, I had just been slapped by my son's wife. And my son stood there, watching. I slowly turned my face back toward her. My cheek burned, but my voice remained calm. "Is this who you've become?" I asked quietly. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her silence was louder than anything she could have said. I looked at my son one last time. "Aris," I said, I raised you to be a man who stands for what is right, not one who stands silently when it is wrong." He still couldn't look at me. And in that moment, I realized something painful. I had not lost respect in that house because of Lena. I had lost it because my own son allowed it. That night I didn't argue, I didn't shout, I didn't demand apologies. Instead, I packed a small bag. At my age, you learn that dignity is more valuable than comfort. As I walked toward the door, Aris finally spoke. "Where are you going?" I stopped, but I didn't turn back. "To give you the space you asked for." There was a long silence behind me. But no one stopped me. The days that followed were not easy. I stayed in a small rented room. It was nothing like my home. The walls were plain, the bed uncomfortable, the silence heavy. But there was one thing that room gave me. Peace. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't walking on eggshells in my own life. Weeks passed. Then months. Not a single call from Lena. Only a few from Aris, short, awkward, filled with guilt but lacking courage. "Are you okay?" he would ask. "I am," I would reply. But what I never said was this: "I am okay without you." One evening, there was a knock on my door. I opened it. It was Aris. He looked different, tired, broken even. "Can I come in?" he asked. I stepped aside. He walked in slowly, looking around the small room. "This is where you've been living?" he asked. "Yes." His eyes filled with regret. "I didn't know." "You didn't ask," I replied calmly. He sat down, burying his face in his hands. "I made a mistake," he said. I didn't respond immediately. Because some truths need silence before they are acknowledged. She left," he continued. I looked at him. "What do you mean?" "She said she couldn't live with the guilt or the consequences. After everything, she just left." I sat down across from him. "And now?" I asked. He looked at me, tears in his eyes. "I want my father back." For a long moment, I said nothing. Because forgiveness is not something you give instantly. It is something you understand first. "Do you know," I said slowly, "what hurt me the most that day?" He shook his head. "It wasn't the slap." He looked surprised. "It was your silence." He broke down. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. "You knew," I said gently. "You just chose not to do it." The room was filled with quiet sorrow. But also with something else. "A chance." "I can forgive you," I said finally. His head snapped up. "But forgiveness doesn't erase what happened. It only gives us a chance to build something better." He nodded, tears still falling. "I'll do anything," he said. "Then start by being the man I raised you to be." Months later, we stood together again, not in that old house but in a new one. Smaller, simpler, but filled with respect. This time, it wasn't built with just bricks. It was built with understanding. As for Lena, I never saw her again. And I don't hate her. Because sometimes, people don't enter your life to stay. They come to teach you something. Moral of the story: respect is the foundation of every relationship. Without it, even love cannot survive. Silence in the face of wrong is not neutrality, it is quiet betrayal. And sometimes, losing everything is the only way to truly find your dignity again.